Greetings gamers, this is Raz from Crush on Pixels, and welcome to yet another video about controllers in Guild Wars 2. It's been about 3 months, maybe more, since I made the last one, and there have been a few updates since then, and mainly because those two videos that I made about that have been my most popular videos so far. I suppose people really care about controllers and PC games that don't have support for it and stuff like that. Anyway, I wanted to make this video as a sort of summary of what I've said previously, to summarize what the controllers work like and all that stuff, and also to add a few tidbits here and there as a few tips for those of you who, for a few things that you might not have known about using a controller with Guild Wars 2. And also, I'm thinking about making a third video in which I compile the things that don't necessarily work very well with Guild Wars 2 when it comes to controllers, and I'm thinking specifically about things that are sort of easy to patch if it were so that ArenaNet would actually want to help us disabled gamers or people who just prefer controllers. It would be a simple patch to make these little changes to make it better, and I thought I'd make a separate video about that, and we can, you know, maybe submit it somehow to ArenaNet on their forums or somehow, and see if they possibly see a point in trying to help us out. It's minor things, really, but it could go a long way in helping us and me and many others who use controllers to play games. So, without further ado, I'm going to try to get into what I've done with the controller. So, as I've said previously, I use Xpadder, which is a software. I think there's a free version, but this one I bought. I don't remember what I bought it for. I think it was like $10, maybe $15, something like that. Not very expensive. And basically, it's a software where you get to remap controller buttons to specific keyboard and mouse functions. This runs in the background while you're playing a game, so that when you use the controller, it translates the movement of the let's see, okay, there we go. The movement of your mouse, it moves your mouse with the right analog stick and stuff like that. The things you do with the controller directly impact the game. So here I am in the game. Right now you're seeing the mouse move. That is not me using a mouse. That is me using the analog stick on the Xbox 360 controller, which is what I use mainly. And so I thought I'd go around all the buttons, or talk about all the buttons that how I've mapped them and how they function, and this might help you if you are interested in using a controller for playing a game like this. Now, I've mentioned in previous videos that a lot of people frown upon this quite a bit. In fact, they're quite disrespectful often to people who actually decide to do this with controllers. But we have our reasons, as I mentioned in the other videos, so, you know, even if they don't like it, we can do it if we want to. It's what we want, and we'll do it. Simple as that. Oh, look, a bunny rabbit. That's so cute. Actually, I don't think I've added a bunny rabbit to my daily kill variety, so sorry, bunny.
Ah, it was nothing.
Yeah, see, that helped a lot. I'm almost level 63 thanks to that little bunny. That's awesome. Anyway, so while I did that, you noticed a few buttons going green on the bit in the corner where you see the controller. That's basically it detecting when I'm doing something with the controller. Now, I'm going to go through the basic stuff. So, attack, which is the #1 key, I've added to the left trigger, like that. And dodge, I've added to the left bumper. Dodge is pretty unique to Guild Wars 2, so it's an awesome feature, really. But this also introduces the absolutely revolutionary function of Xpadder, which is to be able to use a single button for two functions. If you simply press a button, it performs one function, but if you hold it, it performs an entirely different function. See, what happened there, I held down the left trigger instead of just pressing it, and that made me switch out my pet, because I've mapped the holding of the left trigger to, what button was it, F4, I think, which in the case of the Ranger class switches out my pet for my alternative pet. So these are my two pets that I have, and holding down the left trigger simply switches between them. But if I just press the button, like I said, it dodges. So it's a great way to map a whole lot of things that you can do in Guild Wars 2 to the controller, simply by adding more than one function to each button. So aside from those two buttons, we also have the right trigger and bumper. In this particular case, I've added the jump button to the trigger. I know it might be more convenient to add another function to that, but I've actually found that this works very well for me, mainly because I like having all the skill sets on the face buttons. So that really just left the right trigger without any particular function, and I really needed to jump, so I thought, hey, why not? And it works really well. It's not that hard to get used to at all, and it's very helpful. So yeah. So the right bumper switches out my switches out my target. So if I'm targeting one enemy and I see another enemy somewhere on screen, if I tap it, it'll switch to that. See, there's an enemy over there, and it detected that automatically. But this button also has dual functionality. Pressing it simply shifts between them. By that I mean all the visible enemies or possible targets on a screen. But there is also the function of holding down the right bumper, and that actually automatically selects the nearest enemy, which is incredibly useful for when you, in a bind, in a bad situation, you find a target that suddenly snuck up on you. So it's incredibly useful. You just hold down the right bumper and it automatically targets the nearest enemy. So super effective. I got used to this very easily. I mean, it feels like second nature, to be completely honest. So see here, now you have 3 enemies on screen, so I can switch. No, actually 5 enemies on screen. There are some really far back there. So you see it switches between all of them. So if I go to the one that's farthest away and then I hold the right bumper, it jumps to this one because it's the nearest. See? So it works perfectly, and it's very intuitive actually. So then on to some other functions. As you may know, in Guild Wars 2 you can carry 2 weapons, and you can switch between them by pressing a certain button, and I've mapped that button to pressing down on the left analog stick. So you just press down on it once and it switches between the weapon sets. So wait, let me just turn around here so you can see the weapon a little better. That's my short bow, and if I press down, this is my long bow. So yeah, very simple. But also this function this button also has dual functionality. The alternative, or in other words, what happens if I hold down the button, it actually switches to my walking mode. Now, it doesn't appear like anything happened, but watch this. Huh? Yeah, that's right. I'm walking. Yeah, watch me strut that stuff. Oh yeah. Now I just need the Bee Gees in the background. So, as far as the other buttons, now obviously the left analog stick you don't just press the left analog stick, instead it also makes your character move, and this analog has actually been mapped to the movement buttons, which are of course W, A, D, and S, or W, A, S, D, whichever order you prefer, for movement, left, right, up, and down, and so forth. Forward or back, I should say, actually. Very simple, very obvious, I think. But we also have other functions, such as the D-pad. Now, there have been a few changes with the D-pad since my previous video. It used to be that the D-pad only had 1 function per button, but now I've actually added several or 2 functions to almost each of the buttons, except for healing, which is down. For starters, the left button, well, aside from the fact that it actually launches F1, which is, in the case of the Ranger, the skill that makes my animal attack the targeted enemy. So if I press left on the D-pad, my pet attacks that animal. See? Very simple. Up is F2, which is to make him use his special attack. And there it is, his special attack. I think it's Frost or something, it makes the enemy slower or something like that. And of course we have the right button, which is F3, and that makes him retreat. So he comes back once I press it, like you just saw right there. Let's finish this poor little doe off. There you go. Oh, oops. Okay, I accidentally attacked more than what I initially planned. Yeah, there we go. Need to strafe around them. There we go. Problem solved. Anyway, so while I did that, you may have noticed that I used the face buttons. I'll try to get into them later because I want to talk about the D-pad for now. Like I said, the D-pad actually has dual functionality on each button. So if I hold down left, which used to be the attack target button, it actually brings up my character screen, which is... Oops, okay, maybe not. This is actually the contact screen. I'm gonna have to readjust this. It's supposed to bring up my hero screen, which is on H, and I think I mapped it to Y by accident. I'll fix that later. Very simple otherwise. But yeah, if you hold it down, it's supposed to bring up the character screen, which looks like... No, not that one. This one. So it's supposed to bring this up. But yeah, it's really just there so that you can easier get around in the menu, so that you don't have to use the mouse, or that you don't have to use the controller to point the mouse at the hero tab like I just had to do because the mapping was wrong. But aside from that, we also have other... Let me just close this down. We have other dual functionalities. The right button on the D-pad opens up your inventory, and that one was correct. That's good. So I don't have to remap that one. At least that one functioned correctly. So yeah, holding down the right button on the D-pad opens up the inventory in case you're full up and you need to eliminate something, or you need to use one of your items or something like that. Very useful. Very nifty. It didn't, like I said, it didn't actually used to have this. If you watched the previous videos, it used to just do nothing except for the functions I mentioned earlier for my pet. And finally, up, it actually doesn't have to do with any of these buttons up here, but rather it actually makes me auto-run. So what you're seeing right now is my character auto-running. So I hold it up and he starts running, and I'm not using the controller right now. He's just running on his own. Now this is a very useful feature often because it's you sometimes just want to kick back when you know that your character is just gonna run forward anyway. Why did that doe attack me all of a sudden? Where did that come from? Did he do something to that poor doe that made it pissed off? Why did you attack me? What did I do to you? That was very strange and bizarre. A hostile doe for no apparent reason. Anyway, so yeah. Like I said, up just makes me auto-run. Very nifty for when you know you need to run straight ahead and you don't want to hold down the analog stick. Yeah, so that's it for the D-pad. Now I also have the right analog, which obviously I think I've mentioned this obviously in the previous videos, but like I said, I'm going to go through them all. The right analog controls the mouse, and since the mouse actually has two functions, and that's what I wanted to get into right now actually, the mouse has, you can press down on the mouse just like you could, or press down on the right analog just like you could with the left analog, and it has dual functionality, or actually it doesn't, it actually has two different modes. Because what happens is, if you, this is the default mode when you start up the game. It's basically a mouse mode. You can move your mouse around with the right analog stick. But if you press down on it, it shifts. It goes into right-click mode, and it doesn't just right-click once, it actually holds down right. And what that happens in games like this is that it makes the mouse disappear and actually makes it control the camera instead. One other nifty feature of this is that you get to strafe. I'll get into that a little bit more later. But basically, Pressing down once makes it go into camera mode, pressing it down again goes back to mouse, and so forth. And so you switch between mouse mode and camera mode just by clicking the right analog. It's very useful. You get used to it quite easily, actually. And since if you don't have a mouse nearby, it's actually very useful for when you need to click on something with the mouse, because you can actually just move it around like this and click on it. Which brings me to clicking. Actually, you can click in this game, and I've added click to the back button. Now, the back button also has two functionalities. Clicking is just by pressing once on the back button. See, now I just clicked. Over here on this bandit, I click, and it's marked. So just one press on the back button is a regular click. But if I hold down the back button, it opens up my map, which makes it very useful for me to navigate, obviously. You also have a regular minimap down here, so you're not you're not in trouble just because you don't have it up all the time. But yeah, those are the two functions of the back button, and the click, like I said, works very well with the right analog, which controls the mouse. So you can actually use all these tabs, not just the ones you managed to map to the D-pad, but all of them really. Maybe not as fast as you would have with the mouse, or actually probably not even near as fast as you would have with the mouse, but it's an adequate replacement, and it works really well once you get used to it, which I have actually. I've gotten quite used to it. I can point out things very quickly. Still not as fast as a mouse, but very good nevertheless. So the start button actually also has dual functionality, like most of the buttons, like I've mentioned. It actually has use and escape as its main functions. Pressing is use and holding is escape. Now this is pretty useful in most situations, actually. It's going to be one of the tricks I'm going to mention later, but for now, all you really need to know is that it's use. For when you, for example, if you run up to, let's see, I can actually give you an example. Like back here, I see on the map we have one of those trees that you can cut down. If I walk over to it without dying, hopefully, all right, I'm okay. So if I walk up to this tree that you can cut down. Oh, actually, it's not even cut down, or it already was cut down. Let's see, there's another one right over here. Here, okay. So this isn't a tree. This is a harvesting a root vegetable or something like that. So things like this, like things that you can interact with, like chests or other things, talking to NPCs, almost anything that you can basically interact with that you can see in the game world, is mapped to F, which is what you use, which is the use button for when you click start. So right now he's harvesting, and oh my god, I gotta die! Oh my god, this is pretty cool. So yeah, that's I'm not gonna spoil what I just got, but yeah, that's really cool. Anyway, the other, of course, is escape. So that's good if you want to finish the game or something like that. You can just hold down escape and then press close or log out or options or something like that. Pretty useful. So yeah. And then we have the face buttons. Of course, I mentioned them earlier. I've kept them mainly focused on skills. And it's actually focused on the main skills. The ones that you can actually see on the main sort of tab down here. So what happens is, two of the skills are from each side, I think, yeah. Number 1 and number 6 are mapped elsewhere. I've already mentioned them. It's attack, which is on 1, and heal, which is on down on the D-pad. So they're excluded in this particular case, but the other 4 on each side are used, total of 8. Basically what I did is, 1 is X, 3 is Y, 4 is B, and 5 is A. And 7, 8, 9, and 0 are also mapped respectively to the same buttons, only in the mode of holding them down. So if I hold down, if I press 2, it does the number 2 attack, which is poison, and I just attacked. Alright, let me just finish this. I wasn't even thinking about the fact that I'm probably going to attack something, and I leveled up, yay. That's awesome. So yeah, number 2 is basically that attack, but if I hold down X, it performs number 7. That was close. He could have walked into my trap. And that one could have as well. Anyone else? No? Alright, good. It's always risky when animals start approaching you. So yeah, you basically get the gist. I'll just run through them once. I'll face the wall just to be safe. 2, 3, 4, 5. And if I hold them down, 7, 8, 9, and of course my super mode, 0. And this is my super mode. I'm super right now. Behold my superness! I'm on fire, I think. Maybe it's my aura or my chakra. I have evil chakra. And also it affects my animal, so it's a great skill in general. It makes me fast, strong, defensive, all that stuff. It's juicy. That's how good it is. So yeah, that's the face buttons. Very simple. Also very intuitive. Like I said, I wanted to keep just the skills on the face buttons. Originally, back when I made the first 2 versions of my remappings of the controller, originally it was the face buttons were used for general functions like jumping and using and escaping and things like that. But I figured they actually work better for skills, because skills are actually more important in this world, and the other functions work better with the back and escape since you use them less. Skills are better to use in a bind, so it's better to have them more accessible on the face buttons. So yeah, that's about it. I've brought up all the buttons, I think. Yeah. So now basically I'm going to talk about tips. The first tip I have is, well, most people are actually, I bet many people think that if you go into mouse mode then you can't strafe, and that is correct. But you can move sideways. See, the game actually already has this by default, that A and D, if you're not in camera mode, actually makes the character turn. So you can turn around like this. So you're just holding left, he turns. If you're in camera mode, he's going to strafe left and right, but if you're in mouse mode, he's going to turn. And this functions while running, so basically you don't even need to use the right analog stick to travel or move around in the world. You can just use the left analog stick while in mouse mode, not in camera mode. If you're in camera mode, you can still walk, but you'll be strafing and you can't turn. So I think actually it's almost better to be in a non-camera mode, in mouse mode, and if you just want to traverse the land. And while maybe in combat it's better to be in camera mode since you can strafe around your enemies, but in just exploring and stuff like that, it might be actually better to just use the left analog stick in mouse mode. So that's my first tip, just so you know. Just because you're in mouse mode doesn't mean you can't run around, escape, and do a bunch of stuff. It's still very useful to... You can still run around and turn and things like that. My other tip is the escape button, because I know this is pretty obvious, but the escape button actually escapes. It doesn't just bring up this main menu, it actually escapes almost anything that's up. So let's, for example, say that you're in a conversation like this.
Welcome.
Yeah. So if you don't want to continue this conversation, if you don't want to have to select something here, and you don't want to bother going into mouse mode just to click one of these, you just want to get out of here, stop talking to this dude, you can simply hold down the start button and it automatically escapes. This applies to almost any dialogue window. Like even if you bring up the inventory, for example, here's my inventory. If I hold down the start button, it disappears. Same thing with what should be my character screen, but it's actually my contact screen. If I hold down start, it disappears. So it's very useful to get rid of the windows if they are in your way while you are trying to do something. You know, something pops up and you're like, not now, and you hold down, it just disappears. Very useful. Another thing is the F button. Now, like I said, this is the use button, so it's for interacting with the environment. But one thing that I noticed making it very useful with is, and I'm going to kill this doe here just to prove my point very quickly. Just die already, come on. There you go. And I was incredibly unlucky in that that doe didn't actually drop any loot. So let's try that again. One more doe. Doe! And there we go. And this one actually dropped loot. So basically, when you run over a pet that dropped loot, you can just press F to open up the loot window and see what you got. But that's not the tip that I wanted to get to. The tip is actually that you can take all. So you don't even need to, if you feel like you can manage some trash or trophy or junk files, or, well, not files, but items, because I personally have a bag just for junk items that I can sell later. So if you don't care and you want to take them all, you just press F again and the window is gone and you've taken all of it. So if you're not like super picky about just picking up the very useful items, that's a great way to you know, a quicker way to get on with the game instead of having to switch into mouse mode, go over here, and then click the items you want to keep. Sometimes you even have to scroll, which is a real difficult thing with the mouse. You just have to, I think you have to click the arrow or something like that. It's very difficult. Well, it's not difficult, it's just annoying, and it takes a little time. But yeah, that's a great feature that you can just press F and you can take everything. So those are my two main tips, three actually. So I'm not sure if I have any other tips. Like I said, the controller is actually very intuitive and it feels like any Xbox game, for example. When I use the controller in this game, it actually feels like any Xbox game. It's smooth, it reacts very quickly, and the mappings are very intuitive. So yeah, it's all around very good. A lot of people have been sending me messages. I wish you would add more comments. Please add more comments, but usually people PM me asking me about the profiles for Xpatter, oftentimes asking me to send the file to them. I'm more than happy to do that. If you want the Xpatter profile, just PM me or send me a comment in the comment section and I can send that to you. I'm gonna need your email address, so preferably use the private message for that particular reason. But just to ask me something, you don't need to send me a private message just to ask me something related to it. You can use the comment section. That helps the other people who are watching these videos, so feel free to just use the comments if you want to ask something or comment or something like that. So yeah. Like I said, this is a fantastic profile. I'm used to it. It's like second nature. The only thing I'm missing, I've mentioned before, is chatting. I can't communicate with others. I have to use a keyboard for that. But almost all other functions, I can just move around and click what I need and stuff like that. Sometimes I do use a mouse together with the controller. That might sound a little bit weird, but that's how I play first-person shooters. I use the controller in my left hand and I use the mouse on my right. That gives me the precision aiming of the mouse with the precision character movement of the controller. It actually works a lot better than keyboard and mouse. Controller and mouse is actually better, if you ask me personally. So yeah, that's it for now. I'm gonna finish this up. Like I said, I'm gonna try to make another video, a fourth entry, if you will, where I will discuss possible patches that ArenaNet could add to, that could solve some conundrums that we have with this particular game and controller configuration. I've mentioned this earlier, but for example, there is actually a mappable function in the game where you can add a key to make the character turn around, an about face move where he can quickly just turn around into the opposite direction. See, when I have to move the mouse, it's actually pretty slow. Watch. This is very, very, very slow. There is a button that simply switches you around very quickly in one instant move, but it only works in mouse mode. If you're in camera mode, it doesn't do shit, so it's useless. And this is a tiny little thing, but ArenaNet could patch this up very easily. Another thing that I've wished the community to try and help me with is somehow dynamically switching between walking and running. The character runs by default, but you can actually also walk, which I showed you later by holding down the left analog stick. You can go into walk mode. So what I would really like it is if you could like map it so that pushing slightly on the D-pad in some direction makes him walk, but pushing it all the way in that direction makes him run. So that way you have more control over how your character moves. Walking is actually very useful in this particular game because there's platforming on tiny surfaces, so you really need to be very precise, and that's much easier to do when you're walking instead of running. So It would be fantastic if ArenaNet would add a function where you can adjust the speed at which you're moving to, so that I can map slightly pushing for walking and pushing all the way for running. I would be very thankful to ArenaNet if they would do something like that. So I'm going to try to possibly make a second video where I bring up these particular topics, and I'm going to see if I can submit it to ArenaNet and maybe get a few signatures if a few other people agree with me that it would be useful. They might actually do something about it. These are minor things. They could be patched up very easily. And there are a few more things besides the stuff that I just mentioned, and that's why I think it would be better if I made another video. So yeah, that's what's gonna happen. Maybe the submitting. Like I said, if you want to know more, if you have a comment or a question or anything like that, leave a comment in the comment section below the video. Unless YouTube changes its layout again and suddenly the comments are above the video for some reason. Yeah, that's probably not gonna happen. But yeah, thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please like it by pressing the like button. I'd be very thankful for that. And also subscribe to our channel, because we make a bunch of Let's Plays and other funny videos and interesting stuff. Yeah, thanks for watching. I'm Raz from Crush on Pixels saying goodbye.